going back to the first point around the concept of like sentient memes versus static memes, something that I would also like to hear your thoughts on, G Money. Also, given that 9DCC as a brand has an agentic ambassador working for you guys, so definitely curious to hear how you positioned yourself when it comes to the AI agent economy and how you think about that concept of sentient memes.
Yeah, I think I have found it really interesting, and I think I think we've discussed a lot of this offline, legendary, in chats and whatnot. But like, I just think it's the next one. It's not the next meta; it's already here. But I think it's going to become bigger than pretty much everybody even imagines. And I think in a world very similar to like creators, right? Content creators, anybody with a phone can start making content, but that doesn't mean that everybody's going to watch it, right? You have to be interesting. There has to be a reason for people to want to tune in and want to engage and want to see what you're doing. And I think the same thing is going to happen with sentient memes, right? It's like, what is interesting beyond just this is the first? Because I know in crypto, like to me, like the easiest thing to find is this is the first X, right? Whatever it is, it's really easy. And like, I'll admit, even like when I got into NFTs, when I did, it was easy because there weren't that many projects. I won't say it was easy. It was easier because there weren't as many projects. And the bet was one of these will hopefully stand the test of the time. And that's where like the value will accrue because people will be like, this is one of the first, right? Once you saw an explosion, then you had to be a lot more careful about how you deployed capital, where you deployed it, what projects you wanted to do, right? Because you had this like explosion. I think we've seen the same thing now with sentient memes, right? Where okay, cool, they're the ones that were there first, and they've established themselves as the leaders. But I don't think that doesn't mean that there won't be standouts as well, right? So when I've been looking at sentient memes and agents, the thing I look for is like, do I find this interesting, right? That's why I've been so interested in Dolos, because I do think that the content he makes, or he makes, has been some of the most interesting stuff out there. And like, I'm sure, I'm sure all both of you guys definitely get AI agent reply guys in your comments, and most of them are terrible, right? And so, but like the interesting thing is like, how do you differentiate and find the ones that are interesting, that the devs are always iterating, right? And like, and doing that. And so because I'm in the trenches and looking at like, okay, well, if AI agents are the future, right, why not start embracing that now? And I know from like a business process perspective, I think everybody's always like, how can I use AI to make my workflows better, to increase my productivity, right? And you look at that on the creative side of being able to, me never being able to draw, but now I can, right? Because I can just type something into Midjourney and get like, great. Like it's funny because now like on our mood boards, I can, instead of like going on the internet and being like, oh, I want something like this, I can just like describe what I want. Like I think the best example of that, and this was 2 years ago when we did our pop-up in Miami, I created the original mood board using Midjourney of like, this is the vibe that I wanted to give, right? And I think that's really cool because before that I wasn't able to do that. But I think what we're starting to see unlock with AI agents is a new way of utilizing the technology that maybe people, I won't say people hadn't thought about it, because we've been using like virtual influencers for a minute now, but like, let's call it a virtual influencer that can make its own decisions, right? And I think that's really interesting, right? I've had a couple, I literally have a list of like 4 or 5 ideas for AI agents that I want to make, that like, if you're a dev and you're looking for like a cool AI agent to work on, like hit me up, because I have ideas, but I know I can't like run it myself because I don't have enough time. But like, I would definitely love to input on it. But I think this is like, we're in the experimentation phase, right? Like, I think this is all really interesting stuff. And kudos to you guys as well, because I know you're at the forefront of this. Like, I think the stuff that Virtuals is doing, a lot of these AI agent platforms, both on Solana and Base, I think is just really cool. And we're seeing a lot of good and amazing AI talent come into the space and realize like, oh, wait, like crypto is important, right? Like it makes sense. Like they work really well together. So
Yeah,
I'm excited.
that's such a good point, right? Because that was interesting to me to see as well, and to observe that you have teams who've been working on their AI agents frameworks for years and years and years, but suddenly finding like an experimental product market fit in crypto. And I think it was also in A16Z's report. I always need to check myself to not call them AI16Z, because that's the one I think more often about, saying that basically how tremendously expensive it already is to train LLMs, to train AI models, and that it becomes a lift that only the wealthiest companies in the world can basically manage to do, and that crypto could play the role of being the equalizer there. If you think about companies like OpenAI, who are or Google, who are considering, who are thinking basically how can they even handle the electricity infrastructure to train the next model without, which they can't feasibly do in a single US state. They either need to go over multiple states or need to use nuclear energy for that, because otherwise it's just becoming absurd. I think I read that statistic that OpenAI, just to answer the 200 million questions and API calls that it gets asked a day, or ChatGPT gets asked a day, takes around 200 megawatt hours per day, which is roughly the daily consumption of 60,000 average US households. And that's not to train a new model, that's not to upgrade models, that's just to answer the damn questions it gets asked every day. So this is very interesting where crypto comes into that.
Well, I think to your point, right? The decentralization and like it's why we're here, right? I think crypto really democratizes everything. And to exactly your point is we saw ChatGPT whip out their $200 a month model, right? Like a week or two ago. Like we're already starting to see that, right? Like, you know, up until 14 days ago, all right, you know, $20 a month, you know, it's most people can afford that, right? It's like maybe don't have an extra 2 or 3 cups of coffee, but $200 a month is you're starting to see that divergence split between like the have and the have nots, which is ultimately going to be like the ultimate decision maker of, you know, what your opportunities are, because the more access you have to better compute, right, the better your outcomes will probably be in life, right? And so I think it's really important, and that's where I think crypto plays like a huge key. I think that's one of the things that ultimately drove me into the space originally. And, you know, having that freedom to say, hey, if I'm smart enough and I can figure this out, like why shouldn't I, you know, reap the benefits of the risk that I'm taking?
I guess
Absolutely.
just on that point around like infrastructure and optimal solutions, do you think that we're kind of seeing, well, we are seeing a lot of infrastructure come to market. So Dolos, as an example, they've got Dolly on, so that protocol that's coming out. You've also got the ELISA framework, which is AI16Z. You've got Cerebro, which is like ZearPi. So there's a lot of these infrastructure plays that are coming out. Are you kind of getting a sense as to which ones might be market leaders, just from your conversations
To be perfectly honest, outside of price, I don't necessarily understand the tech well enough, right, to be able to look at the code and be like, oh, like this is better than that one. For me, it's like the ease of use, right? Because like we're gonna get to like no code sooner rather than later, right? Interestingly enough, like I have coded a couple things over the last couple months because of Cursor and Claude and GPT and like you know, we joke on the team, I'm a full stack dev now because, you know, like our slots game that we have daily for 90cc, I actually like developed the framework for that with AI, and then I handed it off to like our dev team to like reskin it, like make it 90cc, and then implement it on the back end so that it's not hackable and stuff like that, right? But like, yeah, I think a lot of it comes from asking devs that I think are smart, that understand it, being like, which one do you think is better? What do you like, right? You know, if I were to tell you who I think are the market leaders, I think obviously virtuals is one of them, right? And that's just like kind of a function of price, where it's like, oh yeah, like the price has whatever 50x in the last like, you know, 60 days or 90 days, of course they're the market leader. But I think that there's, just because you took an early lead doesn't necessarily mean you can rest on your laurels, because I've looked at a lot of AI investments over the last like year or two, and always like my biggest thing is like, what's your moat? Like, what's really to stop ChatGPT or Anthropic from coming in and just crushing your vertical with their monthly, right? Like, I think Sora is a great example where I've been using Runway for the last couple months, and then Sora came out, and I'm like, this is pretty good. Like, I think it's like a little bit easier to use than Runway, personally. And like, that's always like the question, right? Just because you're a leader today, especially in AI, right? Where it's like, you can come in with an idea and like go idea to product pretty quickly.
Yep, and those two, just for the people not aware of it, are video generating models.